Well, a lot of questions. I'm going to open up to the audience as well. I'm just going to get things started by asking. We played AKA Dan a few years ago. What was that journey like going from making AKA Dan to wanting to do AKA Soul?
I think that the first time around, and I'll let John definitely talk about this too, but I think the first time around, it was none of us had filmed in Korea before, and even just going through, like, I was emotionally just going through a lot at that time, and I think we just had a lot of really, like, miraculous things just fall into place. And then going into this one, it's actually kind of been very similar. We just had a lot of really miraculous things just kind of fall into place to like allow us to have made these both of these documentaries. So, AKA Dan, the first one that we did was chronically. It was documenting the first journey out there where I met my biological mom, family, and I was really, really just thrilled that we were able to put together this one. I'll let John kind of talk about it.
I mean, what he said, yeah. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good, yeah. I don't really have anything else.
So how did the idea come about to do about 5 people?
That was actually Dan's idea. I think, yeah, why did you come up? Because you brought that idea to me.
So it was something that after we, like, actually while I was in Korea the first time, the biggest thing that I realized after meeting so many amazing other people while we were at that conference in Korea. So every 3 years they do this adoptee conference, and which gathers all, like, the largest gathering of Korean adoptees from around the world. And so the one thing I realized going through that, just meeting so many incredible people, was that I have an interesting story, but all of these people have such amazing stories that deserve to be shared. And so it's something that I wanted to do ever since we filmed the first one, and luckily Tracy was so. I'll let Tracy kind of talk about, like, why she ended up greenlighting it, but Tracy was so generous, and through NBC and ISA, we were able to put this together to become a thing. So, but it was something that I really felt strongly about. That if I had it's something interesting to say, that there's so many other people that had, like, amazing stories that we needed to share.
Yeah, I mean, I actually saw AKA Dan on YouTube in 2014. And at the time, I was transitioning into a new job I used to work at MSNBC. And it feels weird to say in 2014, we were still trying to figure out the web. But I feel like in an organization like NBC, where digital wasn't first, we were looking for new ways to tell stories. And I remember seeing AKA Dan, and I watched this all, like, sitting on the floor of my apartment eating ramen. And I just, like, couldn't look away. I had to keep coming back and watching it. And I remember going to NBC and saying, we should do stuff like this. And at the time, I don't think they were ready to do it. But when I took over NBC Asia in America, I always wanted to do something like what ISA was doing, what I'd seen. You know, we're not reinventing the wheel here. People on YouTube and content creators have been doing this for a long time. Maybe they just didn't have the wider platform that NBC could provide. And I think that's just been the philosophy of NBC Asian America. And so I thought, well, I'm gonna just create this video channel. We're gonna make stuff, and then we'll see what happens. And then about 2 months into making stuff, we were getting a lot of attention. And then Dan actually reached out to me, and I thought, oh, this is so cool, because I don't want to sound like a fangirl, but, like, I got a lot of inspiration from seeing that journey that Dan and John put together. And when he said, I want to do this, I don't know if you're interested, I immediately just said, I can't think of anyone who wouldn't be interested in this, because I'm not an adoptee, but I feel like, and I think that you guys can all agree, watching the film, the search for identity is something I think anyone can relate to.
Can you say something about the title of the film? I mean, the film is about 5 different people, but why title it A Place, Soul?
I went into production thinking like, we need to have this, like, really cool title, you know? I'm like, and I want it to be like, you know, like, have you ever seen Catfish? At the end, the interview with the guy is, like, talking about catfish. Like, it's such a cool way to title the story. So I was like, I want to do something like that. And so we were just like, and we had this placeholder, AKA Soul, because, like, AKA Dan, AKA Soul. So we're like, we're just gonna hold this placeholder here until we come up with, like, the coolest title. And then that title never came.
Okay. So I had a question for Mrs. Matthews. I mean, often when you watch yourself on screen, you're thinking about, oh, how do I look and everything. But I'm curious what you think about the other families and other stories, just from your perspective as somebody who's gone through it.
I had not seen any of the other stories. I only read a little bit online. And I thought it was fascinating. It's nice to see an overall picture that Dan's story and ours is kind of like the Cinderella story. And I know that's not the way most connections happen. And so I was very interested. I thought they did a very good job of showing a good representative sample. So I appreciate that.
And I love the way that certain themes cross across all 5. And one of those things is tattoos. And I actually wanted to ask Min, like, what do tattoos mean for you? I mean, like, the film often is about bodies, it's about gender, but also about race. But tattoos that's something else altogether. I wonder if you can talk about that.
Yeah, definitely something else altogether. You're right. I think that the film was very much about bodies and about how we felt in a place and a time. And tattoos are really representative about something that we take on to allow this to be ours. It's a mark to say, this is me, this is where I am, this is my life. And I think us being in Seoul and the film title of AKA SEOUL, very much brings it back to this is us, this is our bodies, this is our time, this is our place. And irrespective of what that is that ties us together, there's a mark for each of us.
Any questions from the audience?
Hi, I didn't see AKA Dan, so I have some questions for you, Dan, about how you decided to get into your music style, your rap. Because I have a nephew who is a rap artist. He is a Orthodox Russian Orthodox Christian rapper. Very strange. I mean, strange package. So I kind of wanted to know how you got into rap, what your moms think about it.
I guess it kind of came about in high school. And I guess the one thing, it wasn't, I do have an identical twin brother, and actually I found out that he rapped too. And so I think it's weird because I like it, we're ultimately proof that like it's something in the blood was allowing us to be able to do that. So I have no idea what that is. But it is incredible to see that similarity. But I think that it was just, that ultimately what it comes down to is I just needed a way to express myself. And I found that being able to write and perform it through music was the best way for me to be able to express myself. And I'm very thankful for that, for being able to do that. And my mom loves it. She loves it. Yeah. And then actually, before we go into the other audience, I just want to give like the crew, if I can just say something about like the cast and crew and everybody that helped. They literally worked like every single like we had to rush to get this done, and they just did such an amazing job at putting this together in the last couple of months. And I would love to just hear from like Ramel. And especially like Ray, just like he spent like 40 hours coloring this on Monday and Tuesday. So I'd love for them just to like be able to say something about their experience. Ramel.
Hi. When Dan asked me to be on board, I was like, yeah, trip to Korea, I'm on board. But yeah, just experiencing the stories. We worked long hours filming, a lot of stuff, and just being able to give them these adoptees a voice and a platform to share their stories with you guys, and that was kind of like my driving force for, filming and making sure the audio is good. And we were a great crew. We were just like, what was it, 5 of us? But yeah, so we worked hard, and hopefully you guys enjoyed it.
Hi, I'm Rebecca, and I helped assist produce for this film. And honestly, I got to like experience, I was like so honored to go. I'm a past ISA intern, and that was a huge honor for me to be a part of. And I literally, there were so many long days, and it was really, really hot at the time, but honestly, every single minute of it was worth it. And I think just seeing it up on the screen is such an honor, and I'm so, so happy and so excited to see this be shown and shared to the world. And it was such an exciting and honest, but really, really awesome experience. Something that I'll definitely never be able to easily forget at all. So thank you so much for letting me be a part of this, and it was definitely an awesome experience.
So yeah, we all had this Airbnb out in Korea. We were all jammed in this Airbnb. That was our production office. And Rebecca here kept us all fed. It was like eggs and bacon and juk in the morning. And she saved my life, actually, because I got sick on day 1. I got off the plane and I got really sick, and I only made it because of her.
Hi, I'm Shonda. I did the music supervision and the sound. And I know one really, really important thing that everyone needs to know is we chose music directly from the Asian American community. And all of this music was amazing. And I suggest, you guys like follow it on NBC Asian America, find out about these artists and buy their albums and support them because they're amazing. So that's what I want to say.
And then Marcus, you want to talk about the editing of this, especially because so many of you might know this is going to be released as a web series soon. So I don't know if you want to say something about editing for the theatrical version versus for the web.
Yeah, when Max was telling me about this project, he proposed the challenge of having multiple episodes and then at the end also make it into a feature. So that was a big challenge, and I hope that it worked cohesively for everyone. Yeah, it was a challenge, and I'm glad it worked out.
All right, other questions from the audience?
I'm curious, how many, do you guys know about how many different adoption agencies there are in Korea, and were any of you in the film, did you go through the same adoption agencies coming over?
I don't know. I honestly don't know how many there are, but I will say that we did there were similar adoption agencies. We did come through Eastern Social Welfare Society, KSS, and then Social Welfare. I actually don't know. I'm sorry. It's really embarrassing. But we did ultimately our paths did cross, and it was. For me being in Korea, I'll let Min talk about this, but for me being in Korea, it was really amazing to be able to talk to other people that were from my adoption agency and to be able to kind of share stories about what our experiences were like going back. There's a lot of advice that you can get from adoptees that were kind of going through similar things.
Yeah, a lot of the agencies have gone through a lot of transition over the last several years, so several agencies have closed. KSS, Korean Social Services, is the one that I was adopted through, along with thousands of other Midwestern Korean adoptees. And going back there and finding out that they had actually closed down their operations, the orphanage was closed. They only keep a staff of 3 people so that they can respond to people like me going to look at their files, was really shocking. I think there's maybe a handful of agencies now that really respond to requests. The vast majority of them have either closed or have merged. So it was really an incredible experience.
I have a question for Min. How did you feel when you were in Korea as a transgender? Did you feel welcome? Did you feel discriminated? And how's it different from how it's accepted here versus over there in Korea?
So I think the question was, how did I feel as a trans person in Korea? It was really great. My first reaction, as I said in the film, walking down the street, my first night, I felt really connected to being there as a Korean man and walking down the street and realizing I actually fit somewhere. John Maxwell, the incredible storyteller he is, through the process of the film, was able to get to the fact that in my life, growing up in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, a very large, extremely diverse city, that I had never felt like I really belonged anywhere. And so being there and feeling that sense of belonging was incredible. It was an amazing feeling. As a trans person and knowing that I was trans walking down the street, I think the reality was nobody else knew I was trans walking down the street. I didn't walk down the street and have people be like, oh, there's that trans guy. In general, I just fit as a man. And there was things about it that were interesting, right? Like there was a moment where we were talking about where to go, and it was like, oh, for trans people, we just sort of go to whatever feels like the right fit for our gender. But there's not really a trans community. That said, there's a deep history of transgender work and a deep history of transgender people in Korea. So it was pretty incredible to be a part of that culture, to understand a little bit more about the intricacies of it, and to feel like I belonged irrespective of whatever life transitions my journey has taken me on.
Hey, John, so how did you pick these 5 people? I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of interesting stories with the adoptee.
The process was Dan reached out through his connections to the adopted community, and we got maybe 50 submissions, something like that. And we just conducted like Skype. Everyone submitted a video, so they kind of told their story. So we whittled it down to like maybe 10, and then we had like Skype interviews with everybody, and I just picked the people that I was drawn to, that I thought had the most to say. It just happened that we had one straight male, one straight female, and then a gay male, gay female, and one trans. That was purely by coincidence, but yeah. And actually, Min was added halfway through our production. So that's what's really amazing is, so we actually had a different person to be our fifth person, and things didn't work out. And I was connected with Min like last second, and he was going to be our tour guide. He was going to take Chelsea around the gay area. And then I was just like, oh, I just lost one of my subjects. Like, oh, this is not going well. And then Min was like, oh, I wish I'd heard about this project. I would have loved to be involved. And I was like, well, now you're involved. So, but I think it was, we got really lucky.
I guess for like myself, who's not an adoptee but grew up in Australia, I totally understand the idea of an identity crisis. So I wanted to ask the adoptees, did you feel that you went through an identity crisis twice, or did you feel it was kind of like the same journey that you had?
I think the struggle for identity is something that I'm personally going through all the time. And I think that it just happens at different moments in my life that are kind of triggered by certain things. When you're younger, I grew up in a pretty, not with a ton of diversity. There was still like, it's still Southern California, so it was still able and accessible to be able to find some diversity. But for me, like growing up, like every day you're thinking to yourself, like, what am I? What's going on? I'm Korean, but I'm also X, I'm also Y, I'm also Z. And so it's something that we're continually going through. And then as I've gotten older, especially through this whole process, I think that it's just another, especially now that I've met my biological family, that I see like physically what my twin brother looks like, that looking at him and then like deciding for myself, like, what is it that I, like, who am I, is another, that was another trigger for me. So I'm constantly just kind of thinking about it.
I've been through 39 years of identity discussions. I was born a girl in Seoul. I have conversations often with young cousins about, I remember when I was a 17-year-old girl. That seems like a weird thing to say as a 39-year-old man. I think that the intersection of where being a Korean adoptee meets my identity as a man in this world has always been an evolving process. And certainly crisis has been an understatement at certain times. I think it's something that I will always be on the path of trying to understand and trying to create a space for my identity in a way that feels like the right space for me. And I think it's tough because you can't ever be like, oh, we're all going to go through this path and we're all going to figure these things out. It's just not the way it works for everyone. So I think in general, we go down the path of trying to find our identities, and whether that's a man, a woman, Asian, cisgender, whatever it is, we look for it and we continue to search.
Korean media is very rare, whether it's film or other media, it's very rare. I find to see representations of adoptees, let alone queer adoptees. So I just wanted to say that the film, I think, is incredibly powerful to see these faces and these figures on screen. They're not marginalized, but they're at the center of the story. So I'm wondering what plans you have or what experiences you've had showing the film to South Korean audiences, because I feel like it's something that they really should see.
No, we haven't shown. You guys are like the first people that have seen it. Actually, I drove the movie down from my house like yesterday. So.
And Dan built the Blu-ray at the office yesterday.
Yeah, he just made the Blu-ray today. So, the only thing I will say is, to me, like AKA Dan is about adoption. It's like about this guy like trying to meet his birth family, right? It's about adoption. But my goal, like making this, AKA SEOUL to me is not about adoption. Adoption is just like one lens that we use to explore like these universal human stories. And I really hope that, other people and it reaches out to other groups, and they get something out of that,
Well, connected to that maybe Tracy can comment on this. Now that this is world premiered, what are the next steps for getting it out?
Well, we're gonna wait till the election passes. That's one thing. Because originally, when Dan said, "Oh, November is National Adoption Month," I said, "Great, let's release it." And we've been doing this. We've had a lot of different series. If I can plug it here, NBCAsianAmericaPresents.com. We've got a ton of different series we've been doing all year, and we release them weekly, and they're usually in 5 episodes, over the course of a month. But I knew the election was going to kind of be a disruptor, so it kind of worked out nicely that this is our world premiere here, and getting the reactions. And I know it's a tight timeline, so I want to thank everyone for hustling so hard on it. It's an incredible project, and we're going to be releasing it in 7 episodes online starting November 10th. And so you'll be able to find that on NBC Asian America's Facebook page, NBC News' YouTube channel. We put everything on the brand account. And it also, if you go to NBCAsianAmericaPresents.com, there's a page there for AKA SEOUL, and all the episodes will be there. It'll be released 7 episodes over the course of November. So by Thanksgiving, you can spend your time watching the documentary or sharing it. I would love for people to share it. I'd love the opportunity to be able to show it more places. We got a lot of messages after the trailer came out from people in South Korea saying, is it gonna come here? I'd love to see it. Is there something we could maybe help with that? So any suggestions, bring them up my way.
I have a request for the next film. The moms, the adoptive families. I'd like to see, their journey as well.
And I would say that, when I was pitching this even inside the building to folks at NBC Comcast, I started to understand or realize that a lot of people didn't know a lot about the Korean adoptee community. And to me, I just felt I learned a lot about it over the past few years, and just doing what I do at NBC Asian America. There's so many stories out there, and so I agree. I don't want to put you to work now, but,
AKA Mom, coming soon. All right, other questions?
Love the film, but what's like the biggest goal that you want, or the biggest thing that you want to see come out of this? What's the best possible situation that for you personally or anyone?
When we were originally going into this, and I think I think everybody's kind of touched on it, but the biggest thing is there's not a lot of representations of, when we think about Asian Americans, very few representations of Asian Americans, but below that, very, very, even a thinner representation of adoption stories. And I think I was moved the most, and I understood, I felt it, why we were doing this after I talked to Peter. And I asked Peter, Peter, why'd you decide to do this? Why'd you sign up for this project? And he said, he wanted to do this because he had never seen anybody that represented him. He didn't know what it was like to see himself being represented. And I think that just as humans, we need to see ourselves. We're a reflection of our media. And if you don't see yourself exist, then you don't know you don't know what it is to kind of exist a little bit. I think there's a portion of you that's missing because you're not seeing yourself represented in that way. And I felt so strongly after he said that to me, and I knew that was the reason. One of the reasons why why we wanted to do this is to be able to have people out there, whether they're adopted or not, be able to see this and see representations of themselves and realize that they exist and they matter. Ultimately, their stories matter. So I think that's one of the biggest goals for me, is to just have people be able to watch this, adopted or not, and be able to say that they finally have seen themselves represented in a way that is whole.
Great film. I love the framing of the scenes. How did the adoption agencies feel about being a part of the film and being actually filmed for this?
I think they were cool, but they in Korea they're very protective of the adoptive mothers. So they set up all the rules to protect them and not necessarily the adopted children that come back. So yeah, we just had to work around that. They were cool with showing the building and showing the workers and stuff, but they were very protective about the files and the adopted families.
And so I just want to do a couple of last quick thank yous. There are people that are here. There's a ton of our ISA team that translated a lot of the stuff that you saw on screen, that they need to be recognized. And they literally stayed up hours just looking at the text and translating words for us. So I really want to make sure that they're recognized for that. Christian filmed parts of the documentary too, so thank you, Christian. And then I really, really want to thank the Wong Fu Productions guys and ISA for just giving me the time to be able to go out there and tell these stories. And ultimately, I think it's super important that, like, when I had an opportunity to pitch something to Tracy, that possibly I could have written down anything, but it was really, really important to me that when I do have these opportunities to be able to pitch something that's adoption related, I want to be able to do that because we need more representations of what it is that we're doing. So I'm so thankful to Tracy for going with that idea. And again, just a huge thank you to this crew for just all of the time they put into it. I saw how much time they were spending, not only like in post, but like in Korea. They were spending like hours just like working on this documentary with Min and everybody. So I'm just so thankful for that. And then just my final thing is for just this film festival and what it's meant for me to be able to come back here. And Leanne's taught me so much. And so I'm so thankful to the film festival for allowing me these opportunities. And I would have never made this documentary if it wasn't for the films that I saw here. And so I'm so thankful to the film festival for doing stuff like this. And I owe so much to this film festival. So yeah, thank you guys so much for coming, and thank you to my family for being here. And I'll hand it off, but I'm just so grateful to the film festival.
Well, on behalf of the film festival, we thank you, Dan. We thank John and the entire cast and crew, and thank you all for being here tonight. See you soon.